Hey everybody, I'm Tommy and you are on the Love Boat. Like boat? You're on a boat. Ashley G, good to see you. Brock Bandy, what's happening? Jane Aldrich, good to see you. Mike Bragg, there you are. There you are. Tell you what, folks, this one, hey honey, how are you? This one is painful for me. I'm not even joking about that. This is, I remember a day when TMZ, the 30-mile zone, you knew that, right? There was the 30-mile zone. Jamie Palmer, how are you? Caroline in Canada. Toby, good to see you. Yeah, back in the day, it was like 30 miles around Hollywood kind of a thing when Harvey Levin first started doing the TMZ program. Toby, good to see you. You know what, folks? I'm going to tell you a little secret. I had a tiny procedure done today. No need to get into it, what that procedure was, but I don't know how long I'm going to go. A little uncomfortable. Wes Lightburn, good to see you. Pepperhead 300, nothing major, by the way. I'm very healthy. I loved TMZ. It isn't good anymore. No, Ashley G, it is not. Here's what's happening with TMZ. First of all, man, I mean, I was a big Harvey Levin fan. I really dug everything that they did over there. Now, most of the stories that come out, there's a really good chance that what you're hearing is butt kiss. Hold on one second, folks. Sorry. Need to crank this up a little bit. Sorry, it's the air conditioning. Had to crank that bad boy up a little bit. There we go. That's more like it. That's more like it. So here's what happened. When the Diddy story was breaking, everybody was sort of got out of control. I did too. And I'm not pushing the Diddy narrative the way that a lot of people are. That said, the guy's a dirtbag and there's prosecutions in his future. I don't see how there's any chance there won't be. That's an opinion. There's a lot of litigation one way or the other, and there's no getting around that. The man's got, depending on who you believe, I can only find 77, but he gets reported in a lot of other places as having 90 open cases. I've heard 104 on one place. Nelson, good to see you. Hello, Barbara Waite. Last time I watched them, it felt like a frat party without the beer kegs. Well, I'll tell you something. It's funny you say that because we're going to talk about that little studio that they've got out there. They have had issues with that studio, and some of you will know this. Some of you may not. I didn't because I gave up on Harvey a while ago. Now, all of the people that have been covering Diddy from the beginning, you know, there's nobody that's flipped. There's nobody that's now going, you know, Diddy's kind of a good guy. Maybe we should cut him some slack, except TMZ. TMZ does not do stories on Diddy anymore unless that story smells like a trial balloon, right? You know what I mean by this? A lot of times, if you're trying to get the country to get behind you, or you're trying to see how the country will react, like the concept of Diddy getting pardoned, there's a lot of people that are very angry at that as an idea. And I mean, really angry. There are people that are pissed about this. But there's also a lot of people that believe that that's why the article or the story that TMZ broke with a exclusive source in the White House. You realize if you say exclusive source, you don't have to turn that source in, right? You don't have to say who the source is. They'll never make you come off of that unless it's national security. And this isn't. This is just a supposed story. And everybody else, I mean, the White House came out and went, hell no. No, there's been no talk of this at all, blah, blah. And there are still people that believe the story. But I think that what Harvey is trying to do is to either sway the U.S. to have a more favorable view of Diddy. And if not, I mean, I'd be looking for collusion, just my opinion. And the reason that I say that is Mark Garagos, who has a show on TMZ, they will say it's not. This is how he avoided a conflict of interest. He's not being paid by TMZ, who leaked the story, right? This was a big, almost scandal. But what they said is he's a podcaster. He has his own podcast. He goes on with Harvey. It's like if I do Colts and Crims, right? You got split down the middle. I got my channel, right? They got their channel, whatever. But if he had been getting a paycheck from them, he probably would have been censured at least because he works for Diddy as an advisor. And his daughter is one of Diddy's main attorneys. So for him to go on and do stories that, you know, TMZ's got a wicked reach. So what stories have they done on Diddy? Well, they leaked that they claimed that there was a leak that said Diddy would be out by Friday. That's the kind of thing you do in hopes of showing the president of the United States that there really wasn't all that much outrage. But there was. There was a tremendous amount of outrage. Every story they do now, they show a picture of him. They say, hey, he's got a job. The guy's got there. The reason he's getting the job is because he wants to make sure he's getting all of those good time credits At lower custody levels, and this is BS, but if you read the Bureau of Prisons paperwork, it will say you're not going to get good time if you're not working. There's just not much truth to that, in all honesty. But I mean, you can get a job in name only. Like you become a porter in the unit, and once a week you push your broom or you do whatever. You're not going to get a paycheck, but it's going to show that you're working. Kind of just how that works. But they ran the story about him working in the laundry. They also broke the story on the exact same day as the Brits did, right, over in the Daily Mail. But the story that said he had a knife put to his throat. A guy snuck into his cell and put a blade up to his throat. There were no cells where he was at. And the real story now apparently has more to do with him sitting in a day room. Allegedly, somebody wanted his chair, and the two of them were kind of yelling at each other. But there were no weapons involved or anything like that. But once again, this is a story that makes it look like this poor man's life is in danger, like he is in jeopardy. It's way worse for him than it is other inmates, blah, blah, blah. Then they are the ones that all of these stories that get leaked, everyone else is trashing the guy. Everyone else is covering the newest lawsuit that just came up, or there's just not a lot of people out there that support Diddy except them. Now, they've also done some other stuff that's just kind of foul if you start to look at it. In July of 2025, this was the Diddy scandal tour stops. TMZ faced backlash for incorporating locations tied to Sean Diddy Combs' legal scandals in their Hollywood celebrity tour. Bad form. This is July of 2025, man. This was, the trial is still going on in July. And they're taking people like, hey, check it out. That's a house where he did freak-offs, which at the time, most of the country believed that this was a serious issue, right? This is something everybody was sort of hanging on the edge of. You talk about tone deaf. How about for the people that are victims of this guy? Yeah, it's really funny to have the place where you were raped have a tour stop for TMZ. You talk about tone deaf, and it gets worse. As my friend Smarty Pants says, when they lied about the Charlie Kirk and the laughing. Yeah, good call. September of 2025, Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and they were doing a live stream in a highly controversial move. TMZ live streamed footage from the scene of the conservative commentator Charlie Kirk's assassination, including graphic details and unverified speculation. That's bad. But what's worse is a lot of the people that work in that little frat house without beers, I believe what someone said, that little frat house without beer, they were laughing a lot. It wasn't, this was, you would think this would have been a solemn occasion and there wouldn't have been people in there cutting it up. But they laughed. By ethical journalist standards, this is jacked up. But these people aren't ethical journalists. Right? The stories that come out, Chris Evans and Alba Baptista baby news, they scooped the family. Like they pay someone at a hospital or they do whatever, my theory, right? I mean, but obviously they have a source somewhere. And they came out and did this stuff before anyone else. And from Massachusetts says TMZ is only out for the money, money, money. I agree with you. And I'm glad that you said that and I didn't, because what I'm going to do is say this. Well, this is Ann from Massachusetts' opinion, and I think it holds a little bit of water. Honestly, now I'm not saying Garagos is a conduit from Diddy to TMZ, but you know what? No one gets in trouble for stories that aren't true, right? No one gets in trouble for this stuff. So what have they got to lose? In October, the Vogue UK article, TMZ amplified and sensationalized a Vogue UK piece on turbulent celebrity relationships, adding unverified rumors and clickbait headlines that fueled misinformation. This led to accusations of unethical amplification as it distorted the original article and contributed to harmful narratives about public figures. And they don't fix these problems. They don't do it. They did come out and do a half-ass apology after the Charlie Kirk laughing thing. But that's because they were probably looking at the temperature of the country and watching people get decimated, people losing jobs, people losing businesses, and really becoming an overnight pariah. Like the people dumb enough to laugh at the death of anybody and do it on social media. Free speech is alive and well, man, right? Free speech does not protect people from thinking you're a jackass. It's not how that works, right? You can go out tomorrow and say, you know what? I really like Nazis. And your boss can go, I really don't. You got to go. I don't like the swastika tattoo on your neck. You're fired. And, you want to take them to court on that? You can. You're not going to win. This has been litigated ad nauseum, and if how you are portraying yourself makes the business you're working for look bad, then they'll get rid of you, and they have every right to. That's their ability to exercise their their freedoms, and you can do yours. You can go out there and say whatever you want, but the journalists don't get into any trouble for this. So it was November when TMZ floated an unconfirmed scoop about a potential presidential pardon for Diddy and his federal charges. Based on anonymous sources reporting he was bragging about it in prison. He was criticized for spreading unsubstantiated claims that could influence the public. And it just happened again, right? So now the newest one is Diddy is telling all of the guys on the yard, right? Diddy's telling all the inmates on the yard that he's going to get a pardon from Trump in 2026. Now, there's nothing to back any of this up. There just isn't. They're not giving sources. They're just claiming that this is kind of what happened. Their track record on Diddy right now sucks, right? When they said, he's going to get a commutation or a pardon, and he should be out as soon as Friday, I think is the words. Somebody gave me crap about that last time, and they said, you got to be accurate. You know what? With all due respect, they made it pretty clear, and they're the absolute, they're the world champion of clickbait. They make one hell of a thumbnail, and they're very good at getting people in, and then they bury the lead like anybody smart will, right? If you come in and you start talking about your headline instantly, people are going to take off after 4 or 5 minutes. So you give them a teaser in the beginning, and then you talk about Meghan Markle, right? You talk about all of these different stories that you can sort of drag people along because you'd like to have them hear it at about the 40-minute mark. I think Harvey has sold out his journalistic integrity. Now, whether or not he's getting paid, by Diddy, whether or not it's just the relationship that he's got with Garagos is putting undue influence on him. But no matter what it is, he never does a story about Diddy anymore where they talk about the fact that this guy's a dirtbag. Smarty Pants says, I think Diddy is in more danger on the outside than the inside. Yeah, I don't know. I would imagine it's probably pretty similar, truthfully. But, on the inside, the rules are really different. And if one person decides that they want to go after him, they can do it pretty easily. Probably more easily than you can on the street. There's a lot more violence in prison than you find on your average street. And their job is to make sure that violence doesn't happen, and it still happens virtually every day. Not in your unit every day, but if you're on a decent sized yard, there's going to be 9 units, right? And those 9 units will have about between the top and bottom tier. So about 126 guys in a unit. You got 9 of them. These are fairly decent sized yards, but every day something's happening in at least one of them, right? You hear the alarms go off constantly. Video version of the National Enquirer. You know what, Jamie Palmer? I don't think you're far off. And the sad thing is they didn't used to be that way. You could do show prep off of TMZ at one point. The problem is people are still doing show prep off of TMZ. I think the tide is turning. You can't just keep doing one jacked up thing after another. I looked up the number of lawsuits against them. There was no way I was even going to come in here and start trying to read them. There are so many people that have taken runs at TMZ. They really are just, Jamie Palmer says TMZ had a field day with the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard era. There's a lot of truth to that. And I'll tell you something, they were good then. In my opinion, that was probably some of the best time for TMZ. I think they were doing fairly decent stories. Unfortunately, at this point, I don't believe anything they say. I think that there's an ideology there that runs kind of thick, and I think they can be bought. You hear that? I think. I'm not telling you that they've been bought. I just don't know how you sit there and you look at Diddy and go, you know what? He was found not guilty on all that stuff, so it obviously isn't true. We've seen the Cassie Ventura video, and I am absolutely trying to be the world's best critical thinker these days, right? Maybe not the smartest dude, but I'm trying to critically think everything. And if you look at the number of people that have accused Diddy, and then just do the critical thinking thing and say, let's say 9 out of 10 of them are BS. Let's say 9 out of 10 of them are just going for a money grab. Now, I don't believe that. I mean, you put yourself through hell when you say that you were a victim, right? That's a tough thing for most people to do. That's why up to 60% normally don't. But if you take those, let's say 60% of those are going for a money grab. There's a ton of people out there that this guy hurt. Harvey Levin forgot that? Or is it that Mark Garagos is in his ear when they're doing the little earpiece thing when the two of them are hanging out? But I find this disturbing because TMZ was sort of always like a rung below the BS media, right? They were more in line to give you some kind of a story that's probably not completely just an ideological rag. And that's what you're going to get at Fox. That's what you're going to get at CNN. All of them have a leaning. They're no longer news sources, right? Now they're opinion channels and they're echo chambers. They make us feel good because they tell us we're right? Everything you think, yeah, you're smarter than those other people. That's a nice thing to hear every day. For real, it's a strange compliment, but I promise you people dig it. That's why echo chambers grow the way that they do. But I used to look to TMZ to check the stories that they were BSing on the mainstream media because they were more likely to give you the real story. I don't believe anything that these guys do anymore. I think at this point, and it's interesting, I remember watching it in the beginning and there were a lot of Timexes and there were a lot of Casios. And now they're all pimping some really nice watches. And I think that they've just gotten, it's like anything else. After a while, you just start going a little bit more fast and loose, right? It's about getting the story out as fast as possible. Jane, that's an interesting way to put that. I like that. In my opinion, TMZ is not critically thinking. They are digitally thinking. Cash and numbers. Yeah, I think there's something to that. Hey, do we have anybody smart in this audience? Because I'm about to tell you something. A little embarrassed. Somebody reached out and said, hey, I've been hyping all of your videos. I see that button. I have no idea what it does or what it means. I assume it's like another kind of a thumbs up thing or a share of some kind. But to anyone that's doing it, thank you. Apparently, it's supposed to help. I have no idea of the concept, but I think it's cool that people are doing it. Ashley says, I am not smart. I've never, never really considered myself a rocket scientist either. But intelligence and critical thinking are two different things, in my opinion, right? So if you take an IQ test, no, I think you can hype the kitty videos was the one that I got it on. Cash is everyone's friend, says, Mom, DMB, good to see you here. This is the critical thinking versus, if you take an IQ, it's an intelligent quotient. It's not saying to you, this guy is the smartest person you're ever going to meet. It's saying this is how big the bathtub in this man or woman's brain is that we can fill up with knowledge. If you decide to memorize every single Grateful Dead concert, where it was, how many people were there, you could fill your brain with all that and be a walking encyclopedia on the Grateful Dead. Probably doesn't make you a rocket scientist if somebody with the same IQ did something different, but it's how much that you can kind of take in. But critical thinking is something that can be taught to everyone. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to be a critical thinker. It's just that when you hear something like the president is going to pardon Diddy, there's a decent chance he could be out as soon as this Friday. And this came from the White House. If the source is anonymous, then the story doesn't mean jack squat. I'm sorry, it doesn't. If there's a way to chase it down and to verify it, you can start trying to do those things. But when you look into that story, you find a way different. There's nobody verifying that. In fact, quite the opposite. Almost all parties involved, including the people on the other side of the pond, when they broke their story, they were like, this is just, it sells papers. It gets clicks. They can sell really good advertising on TMZ, but it's disturbing. Ashley says, I would be really upset if he were to get pardoned. Everybody on the planet would be. Right? For real. Everybody on the planet would be really angry, especially everybody in the United States. And the timing is even worse, right? You're going to hear stories in the next couple of weeks that are going to tie Diddy to Prince Andrew, to Epstein, to all of these things, and Ghislaine Maxwell all together. Now, is that a possibility? It probably could be. I mean, if you're these kinds of sick people, you got to figure that you probably run in packs. I'm not being funny, but I would imagine that these kind of people rub elbows with one another. I think that that's a possibility. But when the Alexander brothers got busted in Florida, these were those real estate, there were triplets, I think, or two were twins and there was another brother. But everybody said, yeah, they were at all the Diddy parties. They can't chase that down. There's no way to back that up. But you're going to hear a lot about this. A lot of people are going to be saying that they're all intertwined, right? Whether or not that's the truth or not, there's not much that we can do. Until we get something verifying it, then critical thinking, you have to suspend this stuff with like a grain of salt, right? For real. You just have to sort of take this stuff. Mike Bragg says AI generated BS. Well, it's it's frightening what people can do with AI. I saw a video made of me recently, not an audio, a video, and it's pretty wild. It's pretty wild. On the bright side, these people were not trying to discredit me or do anything like that. I was actually standing on a planet, but boy, oh boy, does it look like me. That was fairly creepy. How did Ghislaine get low security? That is so wrong, and it is not done. So with the Ghislaine Maxwell thing, the reason that they say that she got sent to low security, and this probably holds a little bit of water, but people can't get in to see you. In higher custody levels, it's a lot more difficult to get in and sit down for 5 or 6 hours. And I think that right now she's the most dangerous person on the planet, right? I mean, she has the ability to do damage to a lot of people in a way that probably no one else alive can. And it's probably why when Jeffrey Epstein got busted in Florida and the prosecutor gave him that sweetheart deal where he did 13 months at the Hotel Gray Bar, wasn't really like doing time. But on top of that, he couldn't be prosecuted. They couldn't take his houses, right? No federal prosecution on any of this stuff, in spite of the fact that there were 36 victims on this, right? But also going forward, no co-defendant named or unnamed could be prosecuted. They did this to protect the Ghislaine Maxwells and to protect anybody else that was a co-conspirator with them. Yes. Yeah, it's terrifying that, so when you start looking through the Bureau of Prisons and you look at the history of it, how many people with these kind of crimes get moved to, and forget a low, she's actually, my understanding is that it's a camp, it's not a low. Tommy Bird, I'm glad you're here, man. Good to see you. She's at about the lowest custody level you can get to. Most people would have to do 20, 25 years before they could start to get their points that low. And as a sex offender, normally you're not allowed to go to any of those yards. So you have to file and go through this process. And there's no way that happened, right? They just moved her because they want to be able to talk to her, because they want to be able to figure out. No way. DNB, congratulations. That is awesome. DNB says that she started her therapy journey in August. That is the coolest thing ever. I'm so happy to hear that. You know what? Put a deuce in the chat if you think that's awesome, because I do. It's more important than anything I'm talking about, by the way. DNV, congratulations. That's awesome. It really is. That's good stuff. I keep forgetting I can't touch the screen. I had the training wheels computer here at the boat for a really long time, and the big white cat did some damage to one of them, and the other just isn't working right. So we had to get a new computer, and I got to use a mouse, and I have absolutely no skill for it. Jamie Palmer says that little black book must be deep and disgusting. Well, from the Virginia Gouffre, we found out other stuff, and we found out that these sick men that were working with Epstein were picking these young girls out of colored photos in a booklet, which is one of the most disturbing things in the world if you think about it. My biggest struggle with all of this is they say that there's now they're talking about 2,000 victims of Epstein. 2,000, right? That's like 2 prison yards in the BOP. And when I think about everybody out on the yard at the same time, it's staggering to think of 2,000 people that were victimized. There's no way that there isn't an army of people that knew what was going on. People that were cooking there, people that were cleaning there, people that were doing maintenance there, pilots that were flying in. All of these people are complicit. In my opinion, everybody should be prosecuted. We know the flight logs on all those planes. Who the hell was flying them? Because they were seeing stuff on that airplane that they should have been reporting to authorities. And you know what? If you see a guy steal a pack of gum at a 7-Eleven, I don't think that there's the same responsibility. But if you're watching kids being victimized and you don't turn them in, you should be prosecuted. I don't know. It's an opinion. You don't have to agree with me on this. But yeah, that's just that to me is the most disturbing part of this. Somebody put that book together. Somebody took those pictures. They brought this stuff to where? You know how many people had to know what was going on? The people that rode boats in and out of that island, the people that did construction on that island. How about all of the people that visited there? Right? Ehud Barak. You know that in the book, Virginia Gouffre says she was abused, and anybody touching you is abuse. But she said a prime minister that everyone would know was physically abusive, like really bad. In an interview, she said she wasn't sure at times if she was going to survive this. He went to New York and he went to the island like 36 visits, I think, from Ehud Barak to Jeffrey Epstein. And he said he wasn't aware of the fact that the guy was a convicted sex offender. I don't buy it. I don't buy it at all. It's fairly terrifying. You know what? I think everybody goes through this exact same thing, Tommy Bird. Therapy has helped me for sure. I never thought I needed any therapy. If everyone else needed it, that was fine. Just not for me. Wrong. Charlie Murphy, little tribute there to Charlie Murphy. Yeah, DNB says, I came from a time when trauma was not talked about and you were just supposed to deal with it. You know what? You want to hear what's even worse? I've been in therapy forever, but I didn't tell my therapist all of the deep, dark secrets. They were part of me that I just wasn't ever going to tell anybody. And it's kind of counterproductive in therapy. But I've made some changes in my life, and I've been working through things from my past that I just never thought would ever happen. What is going on with this screen? There we go. My goodness, people. I'm telling you, I'm not very good at this YouTube thing. You'd think with as much time as I spent doing it that I'd have the hang of it by now, but no. Yeah, you know what, people, if you're not feeling it, if you find yourself feeling down, or you just feel overwhelmed, or you know what, if life is perfect and you'd like it to be more perfecter, see what I did there? More perfecter. I would recommend therapy. I would also recommend journaling and exercising your brain, right? Turn off screens for a little while, maybe read a book. There's nothing like the smell of a book. It's a very, very healthy thing to do some reading. Jane Aldridge says, I'm glad you're in that process. A lot of us got started later than we wished we had. All of us, I think. Very few people start that young enough. Thankfully, both of my kids did. Got my children to do it when they were young. By the time they were coming around, I was already pretty messed up. Yeah, men were supposed to be strong enough to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders without crumbling. It's impossible to do alone. You're damn right. And I'll tell you something. I used to do shows about how birds fly south for the winter and how that front bird basically does all the work. It creates lift, and each bird adds to that lift. So the last bird in the line, like we all used to sit in high school classes because we were all burnt out, that last row of birds, it takes almost no effort at all for them. They just sort of cruise along, right? And as that bird in the front starts to get tired, it rotates back. And the birds keep doing this. There's that long V shape that we see flying south for the winter. And that's how they pull it off. And the same thing happens in sobriety. The same thing happens in every aspect of life. If there aren't some people that are helping lift you, and I know there are going to be believers of many faiths who will say, well, God does the lifting. He absolutely does, right? But there also has to be people around you, right? A lot of times God will use those people to lift you up, and no one can take the lead forever, right? There are some times where you do everything you can do to sort of help people and be a part of people's lives, and then you sort of have to circle to the back for a while and let other people beat their wings really hard in the front. And I think that's how it's supposed to go down. I really do. But surrounding yourself with people that are trying to better their lives, get sober, work on themselves, it'll change you whether you want it to or not. I went to the rehab center yesterday, and I was talking to the guys out there, and that was one of the things I said. I said, do you know why I come here? Because this is how you stay sober. If you stay engaged in people that are in recovery, good things happen. If you don't, you're going to find people that are in active addiction, because it's a lot of people around like that. And the longer you're sober, the more courageous you can be. But I don't think I'm ever going to walk into a crack house, right? Or a shooting parlor. Probably wouldn't be a great idea. So if you're just getting here late, I have absolutely no faith in TMZ. And you know what? In my humble opinion, you shouldn't either. First of all, they are a PR firm for Sean Diddy Combs. Look at all of the last stories that they've done. Everything is trying to paint this guy in the light of, he didn't get convicted of the big stuff, man. This is a small sentence. He'll be out in a couple of years. And then they just keep leaking stories that would make everyone in the United States truthfully believe he's going to get pardoned. It would be political unaliving. Screw that. It would be political suicide for the Republicans if Trump were to do this. I mean, the number of people that are really engaged in this story, and this story, whether you can tie it to Epstein or not, will bleed into it, because there are so many people angry right now about the Epstein story, and You guys know how sometimes stories come out and they seem to just take all of the attention off of what you were looking at over to something else. I think that the artist formerly known as Prince Andrew is doing that in a very big way. We're not talking the same way about Epstein that we used to. Now we've got somebody to blame for everything, right? This guy was a dirtbag. And watch how the stories come out on this one too, people. Critical thinking. These emails that keep popping up, why didn't they all pop up on the same day? Right? Somebody's releasing all these emails. We're supposed to believe they're coming from 8 different people, and they all just have one thing this big that's foul, or a text this big that is, no, man. No, these things are being leaked in a very systematic way to keep us talking about this guy, right? Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, no longer a prince. Yeah, well, something, DNV says, I believe in God, but sometimes you need help from a person who isn't involved. And if you're somebody that does believe in God and you pray for help, I've never had him show up in my room and go, hey, man, I'm here to help. But more often than not, he will put people in my life that change me, and I end up at the point where X meets Y. And I wholeheartedly believe that there are no coincidences, right? I don't say coincidence. I say, imagine that. Imagine that. Yeah, DNB says, especially if religion has some sort of involvement in that trauma. And for a lot of people, how they were brought up. If you can be very unlucky and be born into a fanatical family of any religion, and it can be overwhelming and overbearing. And at young ages, that can leave scars on people for the rest of their life. And they're doing it very often with the best of intent. But the problem with that is that, the Scientologists who are raising second, third, maybe even fourth now generation Scientologists believe they're doing the best thing for them, right? But if you look at exactly what they do to kids in there, it's designed to make them hide human emotion. It's the entire thing, right? You don't want to be showing human emotion in any way. What a concept to do to a child. For real, you talk about an organization that should go. They are low lives. It's terrifying to me. It really is. Jamie Palmer, I think a lot of people have a hard time praying because they believe it's going to be, something from, that we get this image in our head of people going, and yea, though Moab lay thee down by the land of the Canaanites, right? You could just talk to God like you're talking to anybody else. There are people that do that, whether or not they're sure he's out there, because it's a type of meditation for them. It takes the things in their life and gives them a power to say, I'm trying to do something about this, even if it's just me begging, right, a God I can't see for help. And for a lot of people, that's how the thing starts. And I'll tell you something, since we got on this subject, and normally I don't, somebody sent me an email recently and said, how did you end up back, with your faith? And when I was in prison the last time, I went through something that a lot of people go through in their lives, where you say, if I had been born in Iraq, would I be a Christian, right? Maybe I would be a different religion. Or if I had been born in India, right? Would I be Hindu, or would I be Muslim, depending on what part of the world I was born in? Buddhist, right? And so I started to read all of those different holy books, because it's the only thing in prison that no matter where you are, you could be in the shoe, you could be anywhere. And if you say, I want you to get me the Bhagavad Gita, if there is a religious text of any kind, they got to get it for you. It's a law that has got a lot of prisons sued. You literally can get anything that is considered religious from them at any time. So I went and read through all of them. I'm just going to throw this out here. I'm not going to try to anger anybody. But what I find is fascinating is, in almost every single one of the religions that you read, they mention Christ. They'll say, some of the Eastern religions will say the person achieved like a Christ consciousness kind of a thing. The Buddhists believe that he was another incarnation of Buddha. There's every other religion mentions him, right? The Muslims talk about him as a great prophet, just wasn't the one that they think was the greatest prophet. And they don't think he was but he's mentioned in every text. To me, that's fascinating, because I don't find anybody else that is considered a deity mentioned in any of the other ones. And to me, that was a fascinating thing. In my long search back, that was one of the things that really sort of, I tried to do that with analytical thinking. It's hard to do when you're so tied to it from birth. But I looked at every other book, and all of them, very often, not all of them, will say, yeah, that's another way you can get there. That's another way you can get there. The only one of those that didn't was Jesus. He didn't say, yeah, you can go any of those other ways. Didn't mention any of those. But we're all worthy of talking and praying directly to God. We're all righteous enough, though, through and because of the righteousness of Christ and the power of his sacrifice. Drop a couple of subs, but I don't care. Funny videos going up. If you guys haven't seen the shorts, there are some really, really funny shorts that are being put up with the kitties, with Squirrel Nut Zipper, the better of the two cats. I said it. Yeah, I said it. And Katy Perry, the really huge one. But a lot of really funny stuff being put up on that. So if you haven't seen any of those, you probably should get over there and do that. I have got a couple of really big stories that are going to be popping here in the next, I would say within the next 2 or 3 days. Been working on a lot of stuff. Been working on a lot of stuff, doing a lot of research. But there's some big stories coming up. Please be careful. I'm telling you. I don't care what news outlet you're listening to, whether it's TMZ, whether it's Fox, whether it's any of them. If they say anonymous sources, critical thinking says there is no way to back up anything from an anonymous source. You know what I mean? You can't. And then the reporter will say, well, we have a lot of faith in this source because of, or this person has done. Miss me with all that crap. It's still anonymous, right? We have no idea if what they're saying is true or not, and they get paid for getting people to watch stories. And the more sensational the story, right, the better a shot of people watching you. This is, if you believe everything, we'll be right back in the middle of that Diddy crap that we were going through during the last time, to the build up to the trial. And I'm telling you, that was like the satanic panic, but Diddy version. I mean, you know how many actors in Hollywood have been absolutely trashed, right, in the media for hanging out and partying with Diddy and going to these functions. And a lot of them, there's just no way to back any of that up, right? Well, they say there's pictures of him at a party. There's pictures of everybody at Diddy parties. His 50th birthday thing, every single famous person in America stopped by, just long enough to get their picture taken downstairs. But they'll say, there's a picture of him with his arm around this person, that person, everybody. But the number of people that have been trashed for being at these parties, and we have no idea whether or not they were. I find that frightening. So we need to do a little bit more critical thinking. And this is the audience for it. All right, people, if you're getting here late, I had a slight procedure this morning. And if I look a little out of it, I am. I'm a little tough. Nelson says, we don't watch TMZ, Fox, or CNN. Tip my hat. You're probably making a really good decision. I don't watch any of them anymore either, unless I'm trying to do research to trash them. I'm really disturbed by TMZ, by the attitude, the Charlie Kirk thing. All of these things are just disturbing. But the problem is that there are so many people right now on the planet, especially in the US, that look to places like TMZ or Jimmy Kimmel as news, as legitimate sources of news. While Fox and CNN aren't much better, well, they are much better, in their own right. They at least try to sprinkle some facts in. But if you're getting your news from somebody that cracks jokes for a living, you probably ought to find a new place to do it. All righty, people, I'm Tommy. I will be back tomorrow. Really look forward to seeing all of you. And go check out those shorts. I'm telling you, some of them are really funny. All right, God bless everybody. I will see you all on the next one. Between now and then, put a little love in your heart. And if you're not doing therapy, give it some thought. It's a beautiful thing. Good night. Love you.